Hi, I'm Noah, and today I want to tell you about the moment I stopped being a doormat in my own home. I knew my marriage was over the second my stepson, Eric, laughed while I stood there bleeding. My hand wrapped in a dish towel, because he'd moved my grandmother's rocking chair to the shed and I'd tripped over the empty space where it used to be. Not the blood part that would heal, it was the laugh. High and bright, like my pain was the punchline to a joke I hadn't been told. And when I looked at my husband Daniel for backup, for anything, he just sighed like I was the problem for bleeding at an inconvenient time. Portland, Oregon is where I built my life after my divorce. Rain-soaked streets, coffee shops on every corner, a small duplex with a garden I tended myself. I'm 48, and I learned the hard way that stability isn't something you marry into, it's something you create with your own hands. My grandmother's chair was part of that stability. Mahogany wood, curved armrests, worn smooth by 3 generations of women who refused to disappear. She'd rocked me in it when I was small, singing old folk songs in a voice that made you believe the world could be gentle. When she died, I drove 12 hours to bring it home. I stripped the old varnish myself, spent weeks refinishing it in my garage until the wood glowed warm under my palms. That chair sat in my living room for 15 years, a reminder that I came from women who didn't break easy. Then I met Daniel at a charity fundraiser. Architect, soft-spoken, the kind of man who listened when you talked. Second marriage for both of us. His son Eric was 28, living in Seattle, working in tech, seemingly stable. Daniel said they were close, but not smothering. That felt healthy. I thought I was building a partnership, not signing up for a sequel to my first disaster. For a while, it worked. Daniel moved into my duplex MySpace, my mortgage, my name on the deed. He contributed to bills, respected my routines, even helped me expand the garden. I liked how he made coffee in the morning without needing instructions. How he didn't try to fix my life, just lived in it alongside me. Then Eric lost his job. It started small. Could he crash for a week while he figured things out? Of course, family helps family. 1 week became 2, then a month. Eric took over the guest room like he'd paid rent for a decade. Wet towels on my furniture, dirty dishes colonizing the coffee table, music thumping through the walls at midnight. I bit my tongue because Daniel kept saying, "He's going through something, Noah. Be patient, patient." Like patience was a currency I owed them. 3 months in, Eric started treating my duplex like his personal kingdom. He'd sprawl on my grandmother's chair, my chair legs dangling over the armrest, scrolling his phone while eating chips that left grease stains on the wood. The first time I asked him to use a coaster, he laughed. "It's just a chair, Noah, relax, just a chair." Like my history was disposable. I tried talking to Daniel, quietly at first, then louder. "Your son is taking over our home." Daniel would nod, promise to talk to Eric, then nothing would change. Eric would smirk at me over dinner like he knew he'd won. And maybe he had, because Daniel never chose me. Not once. Then came Thanksgiving. I spent 2 days cooking turkey, stuffing cranberry sauce from scratch, the pumpkin pie my grandmother used to make. My sister Jade drove up from Eugene with her kids. Daniel's parents flew in from Minnesota. The table looked beautiful, candles flickering, the smell of rosemary and butter filling the house. I was proud. I'd made something warm and welcoming. Proof that blended families could work if you just tried hard enough. That's when Eric walked in with his biological mother, Christine. I didn't even know she'd been invited. She stood in my doorway, all confidence and judgment, scanning my home like she was appraising it for resale. Daniel hadn't told me. He'd just let her show up. I swallowed the shock and smiled, because that's what you do when you're trying not to ruin Thanksgiving. Dinner started fine. Small talk, passing dishes, my niece asking about the turkey. Then Eric cleared his throat. "I think Mum should sit at the head of the table," he announced, loud enough to stop every conversation. I blinked. I was sitting at the head of the table. In my house. The table I'd set. The meal I'd cooked. "Eric," I started, trying to keep my voice steady. "That's my seat." He grinned like I'd just told a joke. "Come on, Noah, Mum's the guest of honor. Don't be rude." Rude. I was being rude in my own home for wanting to sit where I'd sat for 15 years. I looked at Daniel. His face had that careful blankness people wear when they're deciding whether to be brave or convenient. Maybe just for today, he said softly. It's easier. Easier for who? I stood up. My hands were shaking, but I kept them at my sides. No, I said. This is my home. My table. My chair. Eric laughed, actually laughed, like my boundaries were cute. Then he stood, walked over, and grabbed the back of my grandmother's rocking chair from the living room. He dragged it across the floorwood, scraping against wood, and shoved it toward me. Here, sit in your precious chair, if it matters so much. The room went silent. My sister Jade half stood like she might intervene. Daniel's mother looked at her plate, and Daniel said nothing. I didn't sit in the rocking chair. I walked to my bedroom, closed the door, and stood there in the dark, listening to the muffled sounds of dinner continuing without me. Laughter, clinking glasses, like I'd never been there at all. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind kept circling back to Eric's grin, Daniel's silence, the ease with which they'd erased me. At 2 a.m., I got up and walked into the living room. The rocking chair sat where Eric had left it, crooked and out of place. I ran my hand over the armrest and felt my grandmother's voice in my head. Noah, baby, you teach people how to treat you. I'd been teaching them, I didn't matter. The next morning, I made coffee and sat at my kitchen table, the real one. The one I'd bought before Daniel, before Eric, before I'd convinced myself that compromise meant disappearing. I opened my laptop and started searching. Eric's legal name was Eric Noah Brennan. Daniel had told me once, years ago, that Christine had insisted on giving Eric my name as a middle name because she'd loved it, some poet she admired. It had felt like a coincidence, a funny little connection. Now it felt like theft. But here's the thing about names. They mean something. My name had been my grandmother's name, passed down through her mother and her mother before that. It wasn't just a word. It was a lineage, a history of women who survived. And Eric wore it like a participation trophy. I spent the next week doing research. Quietly. I didn't tell Daniel. I didn't confront Eric. I just gathered information the way you gather kindling before a fire. Oregon law allows you to request a legal name change for compelling personal reasons. Identity confusion, emotional distress, misuse of a family name. I had documentation. My grandmother's birth certificate, my mother's mine. I had proof that Noah was our name, our legacy, not some borrowed decoration on Eric's driver's license. I filed the petition at the Multnomah County Courthouse on a gray Tuesday morning. The clerk barely looked up as she stamped the forms. There'll be a hearing in about 6 weeks, she said. You'll need to notify any affected parties. Affected parties. That would be Eric. I walked out into the drizzle feeling lighter than I had in months. That evening, Daniel asked why I seemed distracted. Just thinking about some family stuff, I told him, not a lie. 2 weeks later, I had the certified letter delivered. Eric was home when it arrived, lounging on my couch in sweatpants, eating cereal out of the box. I watched from the kitchen as he tore it open, his face shifting from confusion to disbelief to rage in under 10 seconds. What the hell is this? He shouted, waving the paper. Daniel looked up from his laptop. What's what? Eric stormed into the kitchen and slammed the letter on the counter. Your wife is trying to take my name. Daniel read it, his expression unreadable. Then he looked at me. Noah, what is this? I kept my voice calm. It's a petition to reclaim my family name. Eric uses it as a middle name. I'm requesting that usage be legally restricted because it causes me emotional distress. Eric's face went red. You can't do that. It's my name. It was my grandmother's name, I said. And my mother's. And mine. You borrowed it? I'm taking it back. He laughed, but it sounded panicked. This is insane. Tell her, Dad. Tell her she can't do this. Daniel rubbed his face. Noah, this seems extreme. Can we talk about this? We've been talking, I said. For months. You don't listen. Daniel's jaw tightened. So this is revenge. Over a chair. This is about respect, I replied. Something I've been begging for, and you've been too busy keeping the peace to notice I'm drowning. The hearing was set for early January. In the weeks leading up to it, Eric tried everything. He ignored me completely, slamming doors and blasting music. He tried guilt, telling Daniel I was ruining their relationship. He even tried bugging and offered to move out, to apologize, to be better. But he never actually apologized. Not really. He said the words like they were a transaction, not a truth. Daniel begged me to drop it. He's my son, Noah. You're putting me in an impossible position. I looked at him and felt something inside me go quiet and cold. You put yourself there the second you let him treat me like a guest in my own home. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Beige walls, fluorescent lights, a judge who looked tired before we even started. Eric sat with Daniel on one side. I sat alone on the other, my folder of documents in front of me like armor. The judge reviewed the petition. Ms. Noah, you're requesting that Mr. Brennan cease use of Noah as a middle name on the grounds of emotional distress and familial misappropriation. Explain. I took a breath. Your Honor, Noah is my family name. It belonged to my grandmother, my mother, and me. It represents a legacy of strength and survival. Mr. Brennan's mother chose it arbitrarily, without connection to its history. Meanwhile, Mr. Brennan has used that name while actively disrespecting me in my own home, undermining my boundaries, and treating my family heritage as disposable. Every time I see his name on mail or documents, it feels like he's stolen a piece of my identity. The judge turned to Eric. Mr. Brennan, why do you oppose this change? Eric shifted in his seat. Because it's my name. I've had it my whole life. She's just mad about some argument. This is petty, I said, my voice sharper than I intended. You dragged my grandmother's chair across the floor like it was garbage. You laughed when I bled because you'd moved it without telling me. You've spent months treating my home like your personal crash pad, and when I asked for basic respect, your father told me to be patient. The judge held up a hand. Ms. Noah, do you have documentation of this name's significance to your family? I slid the folder across birth certificates, photos, letters my grandmother had written. The judge reviewed them silently. Then she looked at Eric. Mr. Brennan, is Noah a name that holds cultural or familial significance to you or your mother? Eric hesitated. I mean, my mum liked it, but no familial connection, no heritage. No, but then I'm ruling in favor of Ms. Noah, the judge said. Mr. Brennan, you are required to remove Noah from all legal documents within 90 days. This includes your driver's license, passport, and any professional records. Failure to comply will result in penalties. Eric's mouth fell open. You can't be serious. I am, the judge said. Court adjourned. Outside, Daniel tried to grab my arm. Noah, please. Can we just talk? I pulled away. We're done talking, Daniel. I'm filing for divorce next week. His face crumpled. Over this, over a name, over everything, I said. Over the fact that you'd rather keep the peace than keep me. I walked to my car in the January rain, feeling the weight of months lift off my shoulders. It wasn't triumph, I felt. It was something quieter, relief. The divorce was finalized by March. Daniel moved out quietly, taking only what was his. Eric stopped speaking to me entirely, which felt like the kindest thing he'd ever done. My duplex felt bigger without them, lighter, like it could finally breathe. I refinished my grandmother's chair one more time, not because it needed it, but because I wanted to. I wanted to pour care into something that mattered, something that would outlast the people who'd tried to make me small. And one evening, as I sat in that chair with a cup of tea, rain drumming against the windows, I thought about names and chairs and the things we fight for. Not because we're petty, because they're ours. Because respect isn't something you beg for, it's something you take back when people forget you deserve it. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever been told you're overreacting for wanting to be treated with dignity, I'd love to hear your thoughts. You're not alone. None of us are.